Every single player with English nationality has been removed from the Premier League in this database, and we are going to simulate the entire season. But it's not just players with English first nationality. It's every player with an English nationality. I'm looking at you, Erling Haaland. And we can all make predictions about which club is going to be affected by the loss of English players the most or the least. Yours, they don't really matter. Mine, if I miss, I have to stream until a League 2 team beats an all-time best 11 that we came up with on stream the other day. Lev Yashin, Cafu, Beckenbauer and Maldini, and Roberto Carlos, Lothar Matthäus, Zinedine Zidane, Diego Maradona, Messi, Ronaldo, Pelé. We already have the database set up. It's scary. We put them in League 2 and I simmed it 1 year and they had like a plus 300 goal difference. The stream would never end, but only if I get my picks wrong. I have to make 3 of them, so surely that won't happen. And for our help in these predictions as we kick off the season, I'm going to break the clubs down into 3 categories. Not screwed, maybe screwed, definitely screwed. In the not screwed category, we have Wolves, losing just 5 players led by Max Kilman. And tied at the least number of players is Liverpool with just 5. Trent, Harvey Elliott, Joe Gomez, but just 5. The rest of the not screwed teams all lose just 7 players. Tottenham loses players like James Maddison, Brennan Johnson, and Eric Dyer because we're using a database before the January transfer window. Then there's Manchester United, who loses players like Marcus Rashford and Scott McTominay. They also lose Harry Maguire, which is a big advantage for Manchester United. Just kidding, Harry. I don't think you're that bad. Us foreheads have to stick together, you know. Man City's also at 7, but some big losses. Kyle Walker, John Stones, Jack Grealish, Phil Foden, and of course, Erling Haaland. Arsenal's here with Ben White, Saka, and Declan Rice all leaving amongst their 7. And Aston Villa even joins the Cool Kids Club at 7, with even Matty Cash getting yeeted. And you'll notice most of the big 6 are in the not screwed section, but which of the other teams got mega screwed? Well, first we have the maybe screwed group. That has Brentford and West Ham in it, who lose 8 players from their active roster. Then there's Fulham and Chelsea, who lose 9 players apiece, but Chelsea will be fine. They have like 45 players, but they don't have Cole Palmer, Raheem Sterling, or Reece James. They don't really have Reece James anyways, but you get the idea. Brighton loses 10 players, including the young starlet Evan Ferguson, because he has English second nationality. And then there's Nottingham Forest and Burnley, who also just lose 10 players apiece, which feels surprisingly low for both of them. That brings us to the clubs that are definitely screwed by losing every English player. We start with Everton, who lose just 12, including some huge names like Calvert-Lewin, Pickford, McNeil, Tarkovsky. Then there's Crystal Palace and Bournemouth, who lose a whopping 13 first-team players from this. But that's somehow way below the 3 most affected teams. And all 3 lose 16 first-team players. The most surprising of which is Newcastle United. And I, for one, am going to miss Anthony Gordon's hair from this season. And since this is Football Manager, the loss of Callum Wilson in particular is going to be hugely important. The other 2, more predictably, were Sheffield United and Luton Town, who lose the majority of their first team squad. But the teams are allowed to make transfers. Obviously, they can't sign any English players, though, because there's a registration rule prohibiting them from registering a single English player for the Premier League. But it's time for my predictions. Dun dun dun. So these preseason odds are based on the clubs once all English players have been removed. And my first pick is I think Liverpool is going to finish higher than second. They only lost 5 players. Manchester City lost 7 and some big ones. I think Liverpool wins the league. Lock that one in. My second pick is that I'm going Newcastle below their 7th place prediction. They lost 16 players. There's no way. Oh, well, wait, they do. I already locked it in. They do have money. Maybe they can buy some guys, but I'm going below 7. I'm also going to take Wolves above 11th. That seems a bit crazy, but they only lost 5 players. I think they can manage a top half finish with basically their entire squad intact. Dun, 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 dun. 3 matches into the season. Arsenal's topping the league with a +9 goal difference and 3 wins, and they're tied with Brentford, not Liverpool. It's not looking good. Shame for Nottingham Forest that Matt Turner isn't English. This game's very accurate. After going behind 1-0, Brentford smoked Nottingham Forest 6-1 behind some questionable performances from the Nottingham Forest goalkeeper. But the terrible news for me is that Liverpool's down in 5th with 1 loss from their first 3 against Nottingham Forest. Starting a lineup that looks honestly very recognizable with the addition of Nusayr Mazraoui as their right back instead of Trent, they lost. Not only did they lose, they lost after taking a 2-0 lead. You thought Trent was bad at defense. But what was that? That just broke the game. And it was the 82nd minute when Awoniyi set up Larson for the Nottingham Forest winner for the shock result of the early window. My Newcastle pick was also looking terrible after they smoked Manchester United 4-1, and that was to start the season. And on the other end of the table, it was just Burnley and Luton Luton Town that were the only two teams to lose their first 3 games. Then the transfer window was concluded, and Nusar Mazraoui was actually the biggest transfer into the Premier League in the entire summer window. To replace John Stones, Manchester City bought Alessio Romagnoli from Lazio. In a classic raise your rent because you're into the Sigma grind set approach, Manchester United sold Victor Lindelof to Tottenham, who also signed Rolando Mandragora and Matias Zaracho in the same window. Everybody was making a lot of additions though. Even Luton Town was trying to plug the holes. They even signed a guy from Liechtenstein, Marcel Buchel. But the loans were where it's at. And you know I love a good loan. Rafinha got loaned in by Arsenal. Manchester City loaned in Dani Ceballos, and I'm a little concerned that Liverpool isn't doing any of this. Choupo-Moting has ended up on Chelsea. Axel Witsel, Nordi Mukiele, Thomas Meunier, all of these guys are getting loaned into the Prem, or within the Prem, because Newcastle's top of the league right now, and they loaned in Mohamed El Neni. Coincidence? I think not. But what is impressive as we stop to take in the transfer window is all 3 of my predictions are not hitting. All 3 of them. This is why I don't bet. I just bet with my time. That's much better. Up to match day 13, and Newcastle has fallen off hard. The lack of depth has bit, and they've won just 1 of their last 6 Premier League matches. And in their last loss, they got absolutely boat raced by Aston Villa, including not 1, not 2, but 3 goals from Bertrand Traore, who in real life isn't even on the team anymore. But just look at the XG in that match, 3.43 to 0.33. Newcastle is toast, right? Manchester City have taken Newcastle's spot at the top of the league, and they did it with a destructive October. West Ham 4-0, Burnley 7-0, and Nottingham Forest by a pair. And they're 6 points clear of my pick to win the league, Liverpool, who languish at 24. 1 point behind Fulham, who were at 25 points in this early stage of the season. Now, it's safe to say they're not scoring a lot of goals. They've scored 4 goals in their last 5 Premier League matches, but they've also only allowed 1. And it was this, scored by Jordan Ayew. And honestly, the Ayews are inevitable. Their last match was a win over Liverpool. They scored this beautiful goal and then managed to hang on even though Liverpool had only lost 5 players. Fulham had lost 9. Surprise team of the Englishless Premier League. At the bottom, we have a truly remarkable performance from Luton Town, who managed to win back-to-back matches, but have been absolutely destroyed in every other match they've played. They sit at 6 points with a minus 27 goal difference. Minus 27 in 13 matches, and they're 18th. Everton is sputtering because of the 10-point deduction, and somehow Sheffield United is below a team with a minus 27 because it hasn't been able to win a game, which makes sense considering their preseason odds were 1 to 2,000 to win the league. My Wolves team is still below my predicted position, but they do have the joint top scorer, Sasha Kalajdzic, and most assists, Pablo Sarabia. Match day 22, and the number one thing is that Sasha Kalajdzic is still somehow the guy leading the Golden Boot. He has 14 goals. 14! Guys should be rooting for this in real life. I guess the only reason he has it is because Erling Haaland isn't above him with like 37. But all those goals have not helped Wolves. They're still in 12th. But adding to the lore of Sasha Kalajdzic, he's also the leading scorer in the FA Cup in just 2 matches. He has a hat trick and a brace. There's just something wrong about the FA Cup with no English players. But Kalajdzic is making people like Sean Dyche very happy battling in set pieces like that one. I don't think he's scored with his feet all year. That's 2 set pieces in 1 game. And he's not just stomping the small teams. He's doing it against Manchester United in the Cup. So you thought you could live without Harry Maguire. Now you kind of need him. I'm just saying. As for the top of the table, Manchester City is starting to run away with it. Stop me if you've heard that before. I mean, since December 6th, they've been perfect. They won the Club World Cup without English players. They got out of the Champions League group without their English players. They beat Millwall 9-2 in the FA Cup without English players, but I guess that's not the biggest accomplishment. You might be wondering where the goal scoring's coming from? 3 answers. Julian Alvarez, Kevin De Bruyne, and Mateus Nunes? Yes, they all have 13 goals. They're recreating Erling Haaland in the aggregate. Liverpool have found their stride and they're up to 3rd, but they're already 10 points off the pace. The one prediction of mine that actually looks good is somehow Newcastle, who went from leading the league after match day 7 to now 13th. It's January 29th. They have 1 Premier League win after November 26th. This was their last starting lineup away to freaking Luton Town, and it's not even bad. Luka Bacchio, Isak, Cornet, you've got Bruno Guimaraes and Amiri, Sharon Botman, Dubravka's in goal. Luton Town's rolling out a freaking 7-3 3, the Gareth Southgate looking formation. But Luton Town, yes, the same Luton Town that had that minus 27 goal difference the last time we checked on them, scored an early goal and was able to counter a response from Newcastle all in the first half. Newcastle even was up a man for the last 31 minutes of the match and lost. And that result was massive at the bottom of the table because Luton Town is still in the relegation zone. But Sheffield United's done them the favor of catching up on goal difference. We appreciate the kindness. But it's because they have just one win. Everton would also be in the relegation zone even without the 10-point deduction. They're all the way at the bottom with just 4 points. Remember, they lost 12 players. Probably should have guessed they were going to be lower. But hindsight is 2020. Oh yeah, Fulham's in 4th still. No idea what's happening there. They even managed to force a replay in the FA Cup away against Arsenal. And Arsenal took the lead on this beautiful play to Gabby Jesus in the 85th minute, only for Fulham to score on a friggin' set piece with Fode Ballo-Touré in the 87th. They're just unbeatable. They played 22 Premier League matches and only lost 4 of them. Maybe they should consider just selling all of their English players. To match day 31. At the top of the league, it's still Manchester City. At the top of the Golden Boot, it's Sasha Kalajdzic. No, he's in second. Son has overtaken him, and how dare he. But big accomplishment for Son and Tottenham. They won the League Cup. I guess that means Tottenham's another team that could consider selling all their English players. They already got rid of Kane. Good things seem to happen. And I'm just saying, you can just send them all to Australia again. But even though Tottenham won the League Cup, which they did, including one of the best work set pieces I've ever seen in this game, and a goal from your boy Son, it doesn't count towards the Golden Boot in the Prem, obviously, but he's killing it. And Tottenham's victory in the final, incredible, over Manchester United, started with this absolute banger from Richarlison. Then Manchester United responded within a minute, but in the most un-Tottenham move of all time, Tottenham then washed them away after that point. Son scored in the 26th, and they didn't look back. That's honestly probably because Tottenham subscribed to this channel. If you haven't already, I've heard it helps. And while it helped Tottenham win a trophy, it did not help them get ahead of Fulham. Fulham's in 3rd, and it's not a fluke. They're well behind Manchester City in expected goals over performance, which I'm not quite sure what that means, but it's an analytic that sounds intelligent. Liverpool's still in the race, but they're 9 points off, and I'm thinking I'm gonna have to do a very long stream soon. But my Wolves pick and Newcastle pick are looking good. Wolves is in 9th at 49 points, and Newcastle is all the way down in 11th. I just need them to finish below 7th. They're at 43 points. And if we keep looking on down, we will find that Everton has started to climb. They actually went on quite an incredible run of winning 5 consecutive Premier League matches to pull themselves up off the bottom of the table. The crowning achievement being an away win against Arsenal where they scored 2 goals, 1-2 inside the first 10 minutes, capped off by that brilliant pass from Mikalenko to Beto. Remember, Everton lost 12 players and had a 10-point deduction. There were only 4 teams that lost more, and 2 of them are behind them. Sheffield United and Luton Town lost 16 players, and for Sheffield United, it shows. They still have just 1 win in 31 matches. Since the last time we've looked, they've lost nearly every game. For celebration's sake, here's that 1 goal that won them 1 match. Of course it's a penalty. Of course. Now Luton Town's at least fighting. They've got 5 wins in 31 matches. They're just a point behind Everton and 6 points from safety. A perilous position occupied by Bournemouth, who are level with Crystal Palace. Both of those teams being the other 2 teams in the definitely screwed category because they lost 13 players apiece. And with that in mind, I'm very disappointed in Aston Villa. They're already like pretty good. They only lost 7 players and they're in 12th. You know, they've been not catching strays this entire video. I'm looking at them now. What is this nonsense? This team's way too good to be doing that. They did lose Ollie Watkins, so they're starting John Duran at striker. Maybe that's it. All I know is Emi Martinez is unhappy, and you don't like him when he's unhappy. But it's time to see the final table, and I need a Manchester City collapse to be right on my picks. They separated again. City only lost 3 matches all year, dude. 3. I missed 2 of 3. Wolves finished 12th. I don't want to play anymore. Liverpool finished 2nd. Tottenham finished 3rd. And Fulham completed a top 4 finish in a world where English players have been removed. Arsenal, Chelsea, and Brighton rounded out the European places, with Manchester United coming in 8th, an incredibly accurate depiction. But it is a shame, though, for United because they bottled Europe on the final day, losing to Wolves. To be fair, it was like the trashiest goal of all time. But they only won 1 of their last 5 matches. Newcastle, after their mid-season collapse, turned their form around and actually managed to finish in 9th, even though they lost 16 players. Like the weirdest looking season ever, dude. Oh, I know why. They signed Gabby Goal in January. He's the solution for everything. Not that it would have helped or anything, but Wolves only won 1 match after March, and it was, of course, the match against United that knocked them out of Europe. So that is a monster bottle from Wolves and United somehow at the same time. time. Kalajic finished third in the Golden Boot. It was actually Alexander Isak who took it late, and Beto from Everton finished second. As for relegation, unsurprisingly, it was 3 teams from the definitely screwed section. At the bottom, obviously, Sheffield United. They won only 3 matches and finished with 17 points. But then there was an incredibly tight 3-team race right at the end of the season. Everton, Bournemouth, Luton Town. You probably knew Luton Town was screwed when they lost to Sheffield United 2-0, handing Sheffield United just their 3rd win of the season. Although shout out to the Brazilian new signing Vinicius Souza for scoring a brace in that game. Although neither one was particularly aesthetically pleasing, they count all the same when your team is bad. But despite all the heartache, Luton Town just needed a win on the final day to stay up, and it looked like they might get it. It was a fortunate deflected goal for Jornel Grot that gave them the lead in the opening minute of the match. But in classic English heartbreak style, they conceded in the 4th minute. The 1-1 draw relegated a team that lost 16 players, didn't have a lot of talent to begin with, and still nearly made it out by 1 point, which left Bournemouth and Everton. And as luck would have it, the 2 sides would meet on the second to last match day, with Bournemouth ahead by 3 points, but Everton ahead on goal difference because of that 10-point deduction. It was essentially a win or go home match. And in that do or die moment, it was Everton's hero, Beto, that struck first. And then he struck again. Bournemouth did score this ricocheting goal right before the half to spice it up at 2-1, but right out of the start of the second half, Beto completed his hat trick, and Everton pulled away to cinch a 5-1 win. It was a massive result that meant as long as Everton didn't get outpointed by Bournemouth on the final day, they would be safe. Everton hosting the incredibly good, for some reason, Fulham. It took until the 65th minute, but then Everton broke through first with a goal from Danjuma. But Fulham's Champions League quality showed through with an excellent shot that maybe should have been saved by Joao Virginia. But hey, they don't have Pickford. Then to break Everton hearts, Diop scored in the 85th, giving Fulham the points and Everton the nerves. All eyes were on Bournemouth, who were playing away against the worst team in the league, Sheffield United, and just needed a point to stay up. But this is the relegation battle, so they lost 2-0. And I intentionally misled you here. I said earlier Sheffield United's win over Luton was their 3rd of the year. It was their 2nd. This was their 3rd. It was too little too late for Sheffield United, but they were able to drag Bournemouth down with them. Crystal Palace, the other team from the definitely screwed section, they finished on 33 points in classic Crystal Palace fashion, managing to narrowly avoid a relegation battle. But at this point, I'm just procrastinating. I lost my wager, and I'm going to have to stream until a League 2 team beats this all-time best 11 that we came up with on stream. If you want to watch that, you check it out on stream, and if you don't have the year and a half that it's going to take me to complete that stream, you can check out the Zealand Live channel, where edited episodes of every single one of my streams, usually playing Football Manager, can be found. It's a fun story to follow. It's like your own TV show with lots of foreheads and cool lights in the background. And we leave our English list Premier League there, but you don't need to stop binge watching. You can check out this video where it's a World Cup, but the age determines the World Cup team. So there's a team of 47-year-olds in there. They're bad, but how bad?